seen this before as well. So Muhammad himself, he only appears 4 times in the Quran. And we have actually selected the 2 verses which Saint Murad translates them in the past tense, and we've checked as well. Those verses are past tense. So we have this one is talking about a Muhammad, and he's talking, and those who believed and worked corrections and believed by what has been caused to continuously descend over Muhammad, and it is the truth from their Lord, which covered up about them their upfronts and corrected their state. Now, if you try to unpick that sentence, you have to really shoehorn the standard Islamic narrative interpretation to make it work. We have there the Daif International translation as well, how they add little bits so that you read that it will be Allah who will remove from people's their misdeeds and their conditions in the future. It's not talking about Allah. This is talking about something completely different. Once again, Muhammad or Mahmad, this is speaking about someone in the past tense. And when we zero in on that very specific part of the sentence in the Arabic, it happens to translate as he is the truth. The translations, even from Saint Murad, he would translate it as and it is the truth. That's just because that form, he or it, is the same in Arabic. You have to know which one or how you translate it into English, depending in the context. So when Murad is translating this, most likely he's saying, well, and he is the truth from the Lord. No, that doesn't make any sense, because this is talking about that which was caused to descend, which is it, is an kind of like an object, or rather not a person. But once you realize that how they are playing with all of these words, the probable likely meaning of this verse when it was first written was, and those who believed, past tense, and worked, corrections, past tense, and believed by what was caused to continuously descend over the Mahmad, that is most likely then talking about something descending, again, the light, just like we had said before, for these people, the spirit. And he, the last noun that appears there would have been over the Mahmad, comma. And he, Mahmad, is the truth from their Lord, which
Right.
covered up about them, their upfronts, covered up about those who believed, their upfronts, and corrected their state. You realize this is all about Christology. People who believed in Jesus, they got forgiveness in the past tense, right?
Yes. And furthermore, we just saw a verse where the last sentence here is echoed, right? First, yeah, he is the truth. Yes, you're right about the duality of it, he, and also from their Lord, which covered up about them their affronts. That reminds me of he who relieves their burdens, and then and corrected their state. That reminds me of release the shackles from them, correcting their state. It's echoing the same thematic. And so yeah, the very clear thing here. Let's not, keep banging on these recap verses. We've got so much content to get into, right? But the main thing here to notice is just the pure deception by the standard translators, right? The first thing is the past tense, and the other thing is this whole idea of forcing the Quran into the verse, because the it in question in the sin is meant to be the Quran, and hence an object / revelation, and hence it rather than he, and hence he is not Muhammad, but rather something else. But and then once you realize that he is referring to Muhammad, then you realize why they had to change it or mess with it, because it says truth from their Lord, right? So if Muhammad is from their Lord, he is of the nature of the Lord, and he came down from on high, right? From their Lord. So it's, yeah, I think it's pretty clear.
Yeah, I actually had shown this comment here from John. So atonement is a very fun word. With Cash is working quite a bit on that because there is more to that story. So I thought that Cash would actually like
Oh yeah,
this.
I'll
Yeah,
elaborate a little very briefly on that. What you mean here is this idea of cover, right? Kafir. This word means cover. That's exactly right, but it means more, because the idea is that in the Old Testament you would cover up your sins in the blood of the sacrifices, which is also how we see our relationship with Christ, as he is the ultimate sacrifice, which ultimately covers up our affronts and corrects our state. So the usage of the word kafir, or KFR, the root in question in many various forms, is used dually in the Quranic text. You have cover as in a negative sense, as those who cover revelation, who cover the truth in their hearts, and that's sort of the standard Islamic narrative, hammers that home. But this idea of covering up their affronts, that's atoning for them, right? So he is the truth which atoned for them their sins. So yeah, John, perfect. Totally agree. So we're now at 3340. Let's get through this really quickly. MHMD, Muhammad, was not a father of any of your men. We see this as a thematic of no paternity, no paternity. He's not the father, guys. He's not the father. Okay, but he is Rasulallah and a seal of the prophets. And Allah was knowledgeable by everything. Of course, when we look at Daif International, suddenly we're time traveling, and we're not talking about Muhammad was not a father of any of your men, because that would be a problem for the sin. Because why is Muhammad talking about himself through the voice of God in the past tense? It just doesn't work. So Sahih International duct tapes it. Okay, lovely. We get Muhammad is not the father of any of your men. We fixed it. Lovely. Okay. So yeah, that's what we have going on in the translations here.
Very basic as well. So we're introducing Muhammad as associated with the term of not having sons. And it's like, okay, so, and also, by the way, like Kash said, so Rasulallah as well, very important title, which we will see again and again, and the seal of the prophets. But we've already seen who the Mahmat was meant to be. And this verse actually gives it away as well very clearly. And as does this one.
JC,
Yep.
go back for 1 second. I just want to highlight this. Okay, if we have past tense here combined with seal of the prophets, that means in the past was the seal of the prophets. That's a big problem. Right?
Okay. Yeah, okay, I didn't notice that one. Well done, well spotted. So this is why because they could get away with saying Muhammad was not the father of any of your men. They say, oh no, well, it was something to do. They could explain it away, but
right,
they can't have that with the seal of the prophets.
Yeah. Like Muhammad before 40, he didn't have any children yet or whatever. You can do the whole dawa shuffle, right? But when it's coming to this, and a seal of the prophets, what? So when he was 20 and Jibril hadn't come to him yet, this was 20 years before, what? So he was a seal of the prophets then? It doesn't make sense, right? So, okay, let's not give any too much credence to the standard Islamic narrative. It's just so clear.
The past tense actually as well indicates that something has already ended, is in the past. So if he was the seal of the prophets, that means that he's speaking to people and he's no longer the seal of the prophets because he's been fired or something. So it would really give the standard Islamic narrative a bit of a headache. But all right. So we have Muhammad not having children. Then we have this one as well. So Surah 6, verse 101 and 102. I will not read these. Most people actually remember these ones already because it's the ones about he did not have a companion. So now we have in these couple of verses where he's talking about the creator, as well as Murad translates it, the innovator, a word that needs to be investigated, but basically generally translated as he did not have a son. Fine, so the creator did not have a son, just like Muhammad, and also he did not have a companion. Another of these verses that Daif International and everybody else will always translate as present tense or something general. It wouldn't actually be like he didn't. When we are then realizing, so now we have Muhammad in the past tense didn't have sons, and now we have the creator in the past did not have a companion. You start to realize that this is very Christological views. They are associating this, and the next one, of course, we're going to show in a second, is all about Jesus. For the people writing this book, Jesus is the creator. And there are plenty of verses that actually shows that as well. But
right. And I want to read, just to give one possible reading for Surah 6:101 here. So we'll read from Murad as a baseline. Innovator of the skies and the earth. The word here, if correct me if I'm wrong, JC, this is subhanahu.
Hmm.
right? So, glory to him, or his glory is for him a birthed one. The thing is, the standard Islamic narrative says, no, we define subhanahu as exaltation above association, right? So they affirm this definition and say, oh, okay, hence it's meant to be read as innovator of the skies and the earth. His exaltation, or exalted is he from having a birthed one. But just read it. Innovator of the skies and the earth, glory to him, or his glory is for him a birthed one. And then we continue. So, and he. So, he is referring to what? Is it the most proximal noun? If so, it's referring to birthed one. So, for him, a birthed one. And he, the birthed one, did not have a female companion. I agree. Jesus did not have a wife, even though Billy Carlson says he may have. And he created everything, and he is by everything knowledgeable. Here we see a distinction, right? We see in other verses, we see creator of the skies and the earth, but here, and this bears further investigation, I'm just sort of like, riffing a little bit here. I don't know exactly the distinction between innovator and creator. My suspicion and intuition here is that innovator and creator of the skies and the earth are distinguished in terms of economia, that the Father innovates, the Son creates. So the innovator of the skies and the earth is the Father. Glorified is he. His glory is for him a birthed one. And he, the birthed one, did not have a female companion. Agreed. And he, the birthed one, created everything. And he is over everything knowledgeable. The knower of the unseen. Christ knows everything. He is the Logos. He is the rational element. He knows the Father perfectly. He knows everything. Sorry. It's crystal clear. So let's continue reading then. Those is Allah. Those is Allah, your Lord. No deity except he, the creator of everything. Now so we're back to creator. So now we're talking about the birthed one who created everything. Right? The Father created everything through the Son, and for the Son is everything created for him. Right? So serve him, and he is over everything a representative. So I think once you read it properly, whoa, this text isn't gibberish. It's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, and so far, so we have to unpick so many titles, and actually, even the Quran acknowledges. We will see this in a verse later, when titles was a very big thing, and now we have actually two for Jesus, nothing to do with Allah. One is Muhammad, so that's Jesus. Then the other one is the creator, and it appears more in other verses as well. So the creator, and then we have Ar Rahman, as we discussed in a previous show as well, where there is this insistence of not having a birth one. That appears quite a bit, that title in Surah 19, which is Surah Miriam, and in 3 instances it says that. And anyway, we did the whole show on that one. It's all about Jesus, and now we have Muhammad and the Creator and Ar-Rahman, all three being told very clearly by the book, by the authors, that he did not have descendants. And once we have unpicked as well that, well, Muhammad happens to be Jesus, because he's the one that in the past removed people's sins and so on. And also the session that we've done about Ar-Rahman. So now we have two of them being Jesus, and the creator now is Jesus. So we're starting to get an idea of what the authors of the Quran actually believed. Of course, there were many changes done later, and there is huge levels of confusion. But when we zero in one problem at a time, we get to see some very, very cool stuff.
Yeah, the author of the
And
Quran and your local imam do not believe the same things.
yes, exactly. In fact, the authors of the Quran would probably be, well, this is Christian. And just to remind everyone of that, so in the session of Ar-Rahman, we just went through all of the important instances where that name is actually used independently as a noun, and doing things, including in the Bismillah. So it's a very important title, and it is just very much concentrated on anything to do with Jesus. So, and of course, then we carry on.
Say evoke Allah or evoke Al-Rahman, whatever day ye evoke, so for him are the goodly names. And do not display by thy prayer, nor conceal it by it, and seek between that a way. So here we see that worship is fine for Allah and Al-Rahman. You can evoke both. They're both God in a sense. The sin says, yeah, they're both God because it's just like, Bill and William. They're just the same name for the same person. Trust. They're both talking about the monad God. Well, what we see here is actually a distinction between Allah and Al-Rahman. They are separate, but both worthy of worship. That is what you can take away from this verse.
Yeah, they're making that distinction. And the way I read this after all this work that we've done would be like, well, evoked by God or by Jesus. Is like fine. It's like is the same. It's almost making a distinction, but it is fine. But then whatever they ye evoke, so for him are the goodly names. And it's like, oh, for him who? Ar-Rahman or Allah? And then you realize they're making a distinction between the two as two different names when they're in fact two different personas, but it's a him, it's a one person. So it's the equivalent of saying three personas, one God, the Trinity. And this thing happens actually a lot. And we haven't discussed the spirit almost at all, but we will in the future. So yes, there is a lot of Trinity in there. But yeah, for him in singular are the goodly names. So Ar-Rahman and Allah are the same. And we also know who Ar-Rahman is. So we're joining the dots.
Yep, indeed. And here we see a very interesting thing, which is that in Surah 4, Ayah 1, and we all sort of like, especially myself, when I started getting into the material, I'm like, wow, all of this is so Christian. But Surah 4 and Surah 9, I don't know about those ones because I know all of the icky verses and stuff, but leave that aside. Don't have too much prejudice because you're still reading the sin, okay? So relax for a second, right? It's going to take some time, but we'll get there, right? But Surah 4, Ayah 1, we see something very interesting. We see, O mankind, be dutiful to your Lord. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Okay, and fear Allah. Interesting. So we should be dutiful to our Lord and fear Allah. Are they the same? Not by context. What do you think, JC?
Well, I think it's Daif International who translates this one the most accurate. At least is very similar to what Murad does, which is forfend your Lord, forfend Allah, Daif International. So you have fear your Lord and fear Allah. So you have basically the same word at least, because the other ones, Hilali Khan and Yusuf Ali, they are taking liberties, I'd say. But yeah, the same verse with two different things. And actually, as well, it's curious that it says, forfend your Lord who has created you. So it's saying your Lord is the one that created you and you need to fear him. And also, fear Allah, fear God. So it's just like you would say in Christianity, if you were going down this path and saying, well, fear Jesus, he's the one who created you, and fear God, like the Trinity, because maybe the Holy Spirit will do something back to you or abandon you or something. So it's just weird, just like we've seen with the evoke Allah or evoke Al-Rahman, that they are making a distinction within the same verse, word for word, using exactly the same words, making a distinction between your Lord who created you, and also the same thing for Allah. I mean, think about this about work. Say that your boss, his name is Bob, and I said, okay, fear Bob and fear your boss. You would know that he's talking about two different people because I have just separated them, right? Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense. So here you have fear your Lord, fear Allah in the same verse. Yeah, it's talking about two different personas or persona like. Basically, they would have different definitions. Your Lord and Allah, in this context, they wouldn't be exactly the same persona. One of them is the one who creates. So, what would be in this case Allah? Perhaps the Trinity as a whole or the Father.
Right, and so here, what I just want to point out the butchering in the translations, right? The duct taping, right? This is not accidental what they're doing. Have a look at Yusuf Ali, right? So we have, okay, well, first we'll look at Hilali Khan. What Hilali Khan does is he uses two different words. He says, be dutiful to your Lord, and I don't see it right now. I'm guessing it's fear Allah, right? It's just covered right now by the Murad, but that's fine, right? So Hilali Khan, his tool of the trade is, yeah, right. So we see, be dutiful to your Lord, even though it's the same word, right? It's the same word, which is my Murad translates it with the actual congruence. as the same word. It's the same word. So be dutiful to your Lord and fear Allah. The point of his usage of different words here is that it changes the context. As is like, your Lord and Allah are the same, bro. Trust. The reason why we have this structure of X and Y is that X and Y are dealing with different aspects of your relationship to the monad Allah God. You should be dutiful to him and you should fear him. So that's the tool that Hilali and Khan uses. Sahih International, he, like you said, is the most faithful. But if we look at Yusuf Ali, he uses a different trick. The trick he uses the same word, reverence, revere, reverence. What he does is he just puts a hyphen instead of wa, which means and. So he just took a word from the Quran and removed it. That's what he did there. This bid'ah monster, right? I mean, they're all that, right? But just look at this. It's just so dirty. I mean, how can you go through your life when the people who you're taking as authorities are acting in this way? It's disgusting.
Yes, there is no way that any Muslim would understand what the Quran says, because they would be reading from these translations. And I think it's like 85% of Muslims don't even speak Arabic. And the ones that do, that means that they are probably in a place where if you figure out that there is something wrong, you're going to keep your mouth shut. But everybody else, they would be going to any of these translators or any of the others. The other ones are actually not better. They are, in fact, some of them even worse.